Welcome everybody to episode number 7 of Comeback Conversations. I am with my man Joe Archibald. Joe's been around a little bit. Joe's been through the process, the council work, the alliance, the experience. Joe actually got to host one of our council calls just a couple of weeks ago. He's taken on a leadership mantle. He's begun to really separate himself in terms of the growth and the process, and really utilizing these tools, going to work inside of the community, on the group calls. Really loves what this fucking thing is about. So I'm honored, Joe, to have you on here. Welcome, brother. Tell your story just a little bit. Kick it off however you like.
Oh, wow. Thank you. The honor's mine. And, it's an honor to be part of this group. I'm taking every opportunity I can to engage. It's part of giving me purpose, engaging with this powerful group of guys. I started my comeback. I clicked the link back in, I believe it was October of last year. And I don't know if I could really define what it was that caused me to click on that link, but I think I had become what I can only describe as a cynical nihilist, full of existential angst. And, I was just making excuses. I had all these traumas that I identified in my life over time as a kid, these various things that, I used as excuses to escape reality and do the things I knew I was supposed to be doing. And for myself and lots of us, that escapism was getting drunk in my garage and just not being present. And, if you look back, I looked back at my picture of that very first day when I had that call, my very first video, fat as fuck, eyes are all bloodshot, my hat's on crooked, probably my hat's probably on crooked now, but I was definitely a mess. And I had gotten into a terrible habit loop of escapism, and it had become so subconscious and so just self-defeating. It was damaging my relationships. It was damaging my self-confidence. And, I knew I needed something different. And I clicked on the link, and my path has been, as you know, and Rich knows, it's kind of been all over the place, but my steady growth is undeniable. And I'm proud of it. I recognize, I give myself grace when I'm not perfect. One of the things that the comeback has really guided me towards is this notion of, asking yourself the question, are you doing your best? Are you proud of what you're doing? And I constantly ask myself that question. I'm not always 100% proud of what I'm doing, but I just continue to try and strive, to be my best and be undeniable to my own aspirations. So, that's it in kind of a nutshell of kind of how I got to where and all those traumas and so forth. They were all just, my mom just passed away. My wife had cancer. There's all these different things. And another thing that, Dave, you always repeat that always resonates with me is I thought I was special. I thought I was the only one who had all these unique problems. And joining the comeback, that's one of the things you recognize is you're not special, but you're not alone. There's so many people who have a lot of these same issues, or challenges. And, being with the group and seeing powerful people like yourself and Mark being the ultimate comeback, when I see what Mark has been through and I hear his stories about the shit that he grew up with, doing heroin, and they'll do all these freaking pretty intense things, and just being at the very bottom and then being where he is now, such a fucking inspiration, and obviously there's levels to this stuff. The guys in the alliance fucking, I'm trying to really tap into that now and engage more with that and just feed off that and grow off of that. So sorry, I'm fucking ranting.
You're good. It's really the ultimate campfire, right? And it's as strong as the logs in that fire, right? You keep putting the logs in, you said your path wasn't, I'll use the word perfect. I don't think you used that word, but we have this really false assumption that everything is supposed to be super perfect, super sequential. The way our minds like to operate, it's it's super measurable. And if it's not perfect, fuck it, it sucks. And where you're at, like you've understand it's progress over perfection. We're all like the price of gold. Generally over time, right? It goes up, but yeah, day to day, right? It's like this day over, day to day, week to week. Over 100 years, right? It's going up, and that's really the path and the progress part of a lot of this. But when you were talking, I wrote down the habit pattern loop. So before you got into this thing, talk a little bit about what that habit pattern loop looked like to you, like the over and over and over again nature of the way you used to do what you did.
Sure. Pretty ugly. So, man, I don't even know where to start. I think that, like a lot of us, alcohol, partying, whatever, was a part of my culture. It was part of my family culture. It was part of my friends' culture. Everything we did, growing up from the time I was 13, that's kind of probably when I very first started kind of toying around with alcohol and so forth. Everything revolved around alcohol. The family barbecues, whenever we'd go, to the ball game, to go snowboarding, skiing, go camping, whatever it was, it all revolved around alcohol, right? And, there was even times where I remember going backpacking one time and I was like, when are we stopping to get the booze? He's like, oh, we're not going to get this. I'm like, well, why the fuck are we going?
Why am I outside wandering around, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, this sounds dumb. I don't want to do that, and I really, it became ingrained in my culture. My existence was like, oh, everything I associate with fun, good times, has to do with that. And, I went through college, and it seemed healthy. It seemed normal, to do that until it wasn't. I started, graduated from college, got a master's degree, did all these other things, and was still, participating in that and having that at the center of everything that I was doing, to the point where it, every time I get, I'd work a full day, go to school at night, come home and get wasted. That was my thing. That was part of the habit loop I started, in my late 20s. It was always there, but then I just started it as an escape. It was an escape, and it wasn't a fun thing. I didn't associate it with fun anymore. It was just, that's what I did. It was, I wanted to escape reality. And that carried on into, my dating life and getting married and, going into careers and so forth. That pattern, it continued on, and I didn't recognize. There was a point where it stopped doing what I wanted it to do, and it started being very harmful, very negative, taking me to dark places. And that's when I became that cynical nihilist. I was like, nothing matters anyways, might as well get fucked up. It really wasn't. I was just, Mark was talking about like digging holes the other day in the Alliance call, right? And, and I made the post about how in my lifetime, I've been digging little holes all over the place for other people, and based on what I thought they wanted me to do, and not being my authentic self. And I got stuck in that pattern too, of doing things for other people. And I think what I ended up doing was kind of hating myself for it. So I would just stay in that loop of just numbness, right? And instead of facing up to what is it that I really want to do, what is it that's bothering me so much? Instead of facing up to that, I just continued into that loop. And once you're in that loop, it becomes subconscious. It's an automatic response, and you just do it. You have the cue, like getting home from work, feeling stressed out, whatever. Then you have that, you go into that pattern. And I definitely, it got so bad to where it was affecting my wife, my kids. My wife's saying like, you can't do this anymore. The kids are seeing what you're doing. They know, they're old enough now to recognize what you're doing. And she all but gave me an ultimatum too, of like, you got to quit this shit, and I appreciate that. But anyways,
no, this is very good. So talk about like the weeks, maybe the months, whatever it was, like the moments. Sometimes that we, have these like kind of milestone moments where like it sort of gets our attention. and then we kind of back away from it and say, yeah, no, that got too real. I'll deal with it next week. Like, what were the weeks, months, whatever it was, really leading up to you to the point of clicking the link and saying, I gotta fucking do something, right? Like, before you get in here, before I got in here, it's mysterious, right? It's a dude on Facebook, and the message makes sense, but then it's like this action that needs to be taken to actually get on a phone call. But where were you really inside of your life? Like, what was the mental fucking cage like right before you clicked the link?
Right before I clicked the link, that few months heading up to that point, that's where my mom had just passed away from Alzheimer's. And she was one of the only people in my family growing up that I was actually close to. That hit me pretty hard. And it kind of exacerbated my feeling of nihilism of like, what's the point? Look at this horrible disease that took my mom, and she was such a loving person. And fuck that, kind of like the fuck God thing. Like, I was mad, and sad and angry, and just and kind of stuck in that feeling. But at the same time, knowing like I don't want to live this life. Like, this nihilism is killing me, and I'm bringing down the people who love me with me, namely my wife and my kids. I think that I'm very fortunate that I did click the link. I mean, my wife still is not trusting 100% of me, and I understand, and I have to be patient with that. But I was in a place like, and I also, right after my mom passed away, I even actually went ahead and like checked myself into an inpatient thing, because I was so desperate and so just feeling lost. Like, I had to do Control, Alt, Delete, complete reboot, breakdown of the hard drive. I needed to kind of start over. And I recognized that wasn't it for me. The AA stuff, the, rehab stuff, it didn't make sense for me. That's not where it was at. It was just, after listening to Mark and some of the ads, like everybody, I revisited them. I listened to them multiple times, and I was like, I just need to be a better version of myself and really tap into who I know I can be. I look back at some things. I'm like, Joe, you're a powerful motherfucker back then. You had so much positivity and achieved so much, and then just got into this garbage loop, and going the wrong direction. And, I just made that decision. Finally, I talked to my wife, and she said, do whatever it fucking takes. I listened to Dave Larson's podcast. Same, Dave, like, my wife is just like, I don't care how much it costs. Just do it. I love you. I want good things for you. And I feel so much gratitude for her and the support that I've had, but yeah, it was just like, I was done throwing my hands up in the air and giving up, and decided I wanted to work for something. And I knew that this was the path, and it is the path. And I'm very grateful for it.
I'm glad you clicked the link, and I'm glad you're here. Early on, when you get inside of this thing, what's your reflections on like the community, the phone calls? Like, as soon as you get into this thing, we kind of throw just like 100 things at you, right? Like, it's like a fire hose of like, shit, what do I do? Do I get on this call? Am I in this, like, where am I? What do I need to do? Maybe just the community. Like, what's your first feeling, I guess, when you got inside of that thing? And you, like you said, like, we both thought we were pretty fucking special. When I first got in that community, I was like, wow, there's a lot of dudes that are just as special as me. We're just fucking good at lying. We're good at hiding. We're good at telling ourselves it's not that bad. But kind of the initial reflection when you get in, you see this community of dudes, you're like, holy shit, like, this is where I belong.
Yeah. It's like nothing I'd ever seen before. And I didn't know what to do with that. The first call, I remember jumping on and just seeing all the faces in Zoom and be like, oh shit. And I just got off really quick. I don't know why. I was just like overwhelmed, and going back to what, we've talked about, Schultz talks about it, like being a toddler, like we behave like toddlers a lot, with the lying and the pounding of the fist when we don't have control, we get our way type shit. But anyways, a lot of us are like that. But yeah, getting in, like, I didn't know what to think of it all. Like a lot of us, I think we're kind of control freaks in a way. And when we don't have control or we're sure about the direction of things, then we kind of freak out a little bit. And I think that's what happened to me when I first got in. Like, well, where do we go? What are we supposed to do? I had all these questions. And, once I started just kind of like going with the flow, reaching out to people, reaching out to you, reaching out to Rich, talking to the guys in the group who have been around for a while, you need to get into a groove. And I feel like it really does have to be organic, and it has to develop the way you need it to, but you have to do the work. And the work might look different for other people. I know it looks different for me. I've gotten into a groove where, I'm really focused on my fitness right now. I think it's taking what you can from what's being offered and engaging as much as you possibly can with the group to get the maximum benefit. Engagement is how you're going to get the maximum benefit, but just be patient is huge. And that's another thing that we're control freaks. We're impatient. We want things right now. We want a magic tablet. There's no fucking thing. You can't take a pill and be ripped. You can't, you can't reach Zen by,
you can't force your way into it. You can't bulldoze your way into it. Yeah. And
we so badly want to do that. So many of us want to do that because, like, in my life, playing sports and a lot of this stuff. Yeah, we practiced, but it was natural to me. And Dave, you said it lots of times, like, this shit was easy for me. You know what I mean? So we expect that to be true of everything, right? And when it's not, we're like, what the fuck? So that challenge is real, but that's the one thing that I said in that call on Friday is don't fucking quit. No matter what it is, don't quit. And that's another thing that, the comeback lifestyle really embraces. It's okay to fuck up and give yourself grace, just don't quit and level up, keep leveling up. And it will happen if you just stick around, stick with it and engage. Make yourself uncomfortable. It's not comfortable to do this right now. It wasn't uncomfortable to get on that call on Friday. I was fucking shaking. I picked up my coffee. I was all, when I was right before I went on. But afterwards, I texted you after, I'm like, man, my nipples are hard after this. That was great. We got some goosebumps. And I felt like the call went great. So anyways, I'm getting a lot out of just the engagement. And I think a lot of people are fearful of that because they feel vulnerable. And I get it. That's how I felt, scared and vulnerable and nihilistic, full of this existential angst, but acknowledging that and being like, okay, what do I do about it? And clicking that link is the first step, I think. So yeah, I was a fucking liar, full of angst, self-defeating. But as like yesterday, if you asked me, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel great. But as I talk to you and I look back, I'm like, dude, I've made a lot of progress. And every once in a while, you have to stop and acknowledge your progress. And that will give you a boost to take the next step. So, man, I feel like I'm so ranting, but
no, anyways. You're good. You said the word engagement a bunch of times, and that's where a lot of guys who come into this thing, come off track. And when I came in, I tried to outsmart it, right? For me and a lot of us, right? If there's 10 things to do, I'm special, right? I'm cute. I know how to outsmart the system. I made my life was just gaming whatever system I was in. What are the shortest cuts that I can take to get the maximum ROI? And when I came into the comeback, I tried the exact same thing. I don't need journaling. That's for other dudes. I'll just grab this call and I'll just do this piece. And when you talk about engagement, you came in and absolutely just fucking threw yourself into the thing. You didn't try to overcomplicate it or outsmart it. You just said, what the fuck do I do next? These 5 things, okay, cool. And then you come back for the next 5 things, what's next? And that's been your trajectory, all the way through this. And I can tell throughout your life, right? Graduate school, business, and it's constant pursuit of more. But the engagement piece, man, is such an important factor back here in the determination of people's success and that long-term trajectory. When you show up and engage, it's a form of holding yourself accountable. It's also a form of putting yourself out there, right? You're sharing shit. You are vulnerable. And when I started, I was so fucking scared and embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to know my special little problem. And you get inside of this thing and you realize there's hundreds of other guys that have my own special problem. Maybe it's not that special to your point earlier. When did you start? When did things start changing, I guess, inside of the relationship, the kids? What were some of these earlier on moments, I guess, where your wife starts looking at you just differently, right? There's a little bit more smile on her face or a little bit more hope rather than, the kind of sad shit that she used to see. When did she start noticing changes?
Man, you know, in being honest with myself and with you on that one, like, it started pretty early on where she saw the changes that were happening. But, you know, several months in, like I started drinking again because I was confident that I knew
you won.
I got this shit, right?
I got control. Did you get did we send you the certificate in the mail? The control certificate?
Yeah. No,
a lot of guys, they come in and they just like race through the work. Yeah. They think there's like a special fucking code somewhere that you can get when, oh, good, now I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lie that I told myself. And, you know, there was a time early on where she was like, I'm really proud of you. Actually, she told me she was proud of me this morning, but like a few months in, she was starting to get more smiles. I would even post some of our pictures together and so forth. But then I did that. And I lied about it to her. I was like, oh, no, I wasn't doing that. And it's fucking embarrassing, but I'm opening up to you guys about it. Like I lied to her about it, you know, and just the look on her face, like it makes me want to cry a little bit right now because I hurt that person I love so much. And she even told me, she's like, Joe, it's not so much that you did that. It's this, the lie is the hugest thing. And the yo-yo thing, I would rather you just take that path of just drinking. At least I'll know what's happening. But when you go out like this and you seem like you're doing fine and if you snap back, that hurts me more than if you were just kind of being a dickhead. You know, and that resonated with me too. But we're in a place right now where she's cautiously moving forward because I've hurt her so badly. You know, and I have to internalize that. We're in denial about that. Like or at least speaking for myself, we really don't see how bad we affect other people with our bad decisions. We literally downplay it, you know, and you have to sit and actively listen to the people in your life, your family that you've hurt and so forth, to understand exactly what it was. You don't have a clear picture of that. You weren't really there. And I wasn't really there. And I have to really, you know, take that to heart and say, you know, I wasn't there. I have to believe this person that I love. They've been there for me this entire time. So grateful for that again. Jeebus must love me. I don't fucking know. God love me. But anyways, it is like, it's a trajectory still. There wasn't, again, any one moment where like, she smiled at me and everything's great. It did happen kind of early on where she smiled at me and things were going good. I snapped that back over the past, I don't know how many months now, doing pretty good, but she's cautious. On the kid level, they are way more engaged. We've developed some habits where we go out to lunch every Saturday, just me and my girls. I have two girls, 13 and 11. They're awesome. So well behaved. Another thing, I'm like no kid drama. Like I hear all the guys talking about like their teenage drama. I don't have any of that. They're fantastic. They're really well behaved, but their eyes, I can see it in their eyes. They see like daddy's back, daddy's engaging, daddy's playing paddleball with us, daddy's taking us to lunch, daddy's doing mountain biking with us, daddy's taking us snowboarding. Like that is huge. And that's part of my purpose. And the stream of consciousness is just like coming out right now. One of the things that Mark told me when we were at the experience, he was asking me what my purpose was. And I'm like, my kids. And he's like, you don't act like it. That punched me in the gut so fucking hard that, you know, and I need that. I need that kind of awakening. But yeah, it's been a work in progress, but definitely building that trust back up. You know, before my wife's out of town right now, and she smiled at me really big, gave me a kiss. I love you. You're my everything, dude. It just feels so great, you know, to be present and to have that love and just feel so grateful for it.
As you're telling this story, and I was thinking of like the inconsistency and the lack of predictability for me. Like, so, you know, women going back, you know, however long, caveman days, you know, they craved like security, right? And it was physical security. You know, these days there is still that sense of like physical security that we always feel like we're providing. But, you know, in my relationship in the past, I wasn't like a consistent presence. Like I wasn't violent and dangerous with her, but like I was so unpredictable. I was so unsteady. I was so different dudes on a different moment of a different day of a different month. And like what I think back now, like Paula just wanted consistency. Like just you said, either drink and be an asshole, or don't drink and don't be an asshole. Like pick fucking one lane, right? Like this constant going back and forth of like, you know, Friday at 4 he's in a good mood, Saturday at 4 he's in a shitty mood, and he's all over the place. Like being consistent. And I think when you can do that over time, like that's, and she's coming down the path with you, but I think the more consistent, the more steady, the more even tempered that you can be, like the more she wants it, right? She hasn't stuck around through all this shit for nothing. She wants it, but she needs to see, you know, the steadiness. Like I can always count on him at this time. I can always count on him to handle that. But I love hearing about the way your girls look at you differently. Like that, to me, my daughter's 11. We have a Friday night date night coming up. We're going out and getting steak, and it's like a big thing. And she actually initiated that a couple days ago. She's like, Daddy, we need to go on a date. You know, it had been a little while since we went on a date. So let's do it. Pick a place. So she picks like the most expensive steak and seafood place in all of Lake Geneva. And she's like, how about this place? I'm like, that sounds good. You know, all class. But like that, when those relationships start to change, that's when you start to realize and understand the magnitude of this, right? You clicked the link because you drank like an asshole, right? You had other issues, but that top line was, you know, I'm drinking too much. Underneath that, I wasn't delivering as a dad. I wasn't delivering in my relationship, my fitness, like all this other shit that's off. And then when you correct that, right, you solve the acute problem, and then you start finding the other problems and going to work on them. That's you get to legacy level, right? And that's where I think of, you know, the time that you're going to spend with those girls, you know, tonight on Saturday, whatever it is like 100-year memories that you get to build in a given moment. And when you can realize the weight of that, like the privilege of that, like, God, Friday night drinks just doesn't sound fucking very important when I can think of like the arc of humanity that I get to touch based on playing fucking paddleboard with these girls tonight.
Yeah. 100%. And, you know, I think like, maybe like you too, Dave, I don't know. I think you mentioned something like this, but like I was there, my physical body was there and I would play, but I wasn't engaged. I really wasn't. And it's, the crazy thing is that they're not hard to please. They just want to be with us. They really do. And one of the things that we all have to do, you know, slow down to go fast. We really got to, that's the lesson learned, is like, slow down, actually be there, look them in the eyes, talk to them. It's, you know, not about just going up to the mountain and being snowboarding, you know, and doing those activities. That's all well and good. But really engaging and being there is something that I've really more cherished recently. And so, Mark, it really is my purpose. I really am engaging with them, and I do love them. They are my purpose, and I'm behaving that way. And I love it. And it really is my purpose, you know. And the more I think about my own mortality, the more I'm like, you know, I got to pass on this legacy of freedom. Like I was listening to, again, I told you I was listening to Mark and Kendra talk this morning about freedom, and passing on that legacy to the kids and really instilling that in them is so profoundly important. You know, probably maybe like you, I didn't get that. I don't feel like I got that from my parents. They were there, they provided, and that was it. And that's good. I'm very grateful that they did, but there wasn't any sort of like guidance or like, what's your purpose? Like, you know, in talking about that kind of stuff, it was very kind of more cold, and, you know, there was love, but it was I don't know. It wasn't very warm, and there wasn't a lot of guidance. And I know a lot of people have had it worse. I am grateful, but it's definitely something like passing on that legacy of freedom and love to my kids so that it can compound within them, and it can grow from them into anyone that they encounter. That's purpose. That's purpose for me. That provides purpose for them. Yeah, it's awesome. It's a great feeling.
Powerful reason to get out of bed every day, to say the least. Yeah. So when you came in through this and you were working, we had a couple of conversations early on, and I could just see like how engaged you were and like the questions you were asking. Then we move up to experience time. And when you Talk a little bit about it first, but like, what made you want to do it? Because you were like, fucking, I am coming to the experience. Like, fuck you, get out of my way. Like, when is it? I'll be there tomorrow if that's when it is. And like, you know, I remember like the messages inside of that chat. Like, you're like leading the rest of these guys who are like, you know, we're a week out, we're 2 weeks out, and you're constantly posted in there and adding fire to these guys and creating like energy. Talk about like that transition to like, all right, we're in this council, right? But I need more. Like, what made you want to do the experience?
Wow. Yeah. It's that engagement. It goes back to the engagement and wanting to learn more and to be really in the presence of you, Dave, and Mark, and learn from the guys who have been through it. And, you know, with my posting and so forth, and I try to schedule meetings with that group of guys, you know, kind of quarterly to hook up again and talk about how we're doing. It goes back to that engagement and wanting to level up. And it also goes back to that notion of like being in the council is great and I'm getting a lot out of it, but I need more. I'm still yo-yoing. I'm still doing things like I haven't gotten there yet. And I still haven't gotten there yet. Like I'm a whole hell of a lot better than I was. And I'm proud of where I am. And I can definitely build off of that. But it was a matter of leveling up and taking that next step. And I have more. That's one of the things I recognize is I don't know what I don't know. So put myself into situations where I can figure out shit, like, you know, and I think it sounds so stupid. Like, you know, we don't know what we don't know. We have to practice being ourselves. Like I've been someone else for so long that, you know, I don't even really know how to be myself. So when I engage with like more like superhero guys, like, you know, a lot of people look at you guys like that as like, you know, these guys are on this level. When I engage with you guys, it helps me identify areas where I can improve more. It's like, oh, they went through this. How did they navigate it? Okay, well, that didn't work. That doesn't work for me. Oh, well, how did Rich navigate it? Oh, okay, that's how he went through that path. Like it's just that engagement. I did it because I wanted to engage with people who want the same things that I do. And what I want is to level up and to live a more purposeful life.
Well, you know, success leaves clues, and it's a wise man that'll actually follow the fucking clues, right? Like, you know, how did it get done? We're all just, you know, Mark's a couple of chapters in the book ahead of me. I'm a couple of chapters in the book ahead of you. There's a guy that's going to watch this today who's fucking brand new, or he's been here a week, and he looks at you, holy shit, like, Joe, you're a fucking superhero. And that's why one of my big things that I like, you know, doing these things is like getting you to tell your story, right? Put it out in the universe. And then, you know, brand new guys down the road, guys we haven't even met yet, who are going to be on one of these things in 6 months or whatever, they get a chance to see a guy like you who's, you know, crisp, sharp, clear, fucking goal-oriented, just an obsessed man with growth and personal development, creation, being a dad. But you didn't start that way. You came in the door just like me, you know, just like Mark, shaky as fuck, right? He didn't click the link because he created it, but like we all came in scared to death, you know, right? Day one is like, it's terrifying, right? But day one is always better than one day. And that was my whole life was, one day I'll do this, and one day I'll do that. Next week I'll do this, and down the road I'll do that. When you can, and you talked about like the levels, I was just in there talking to him right before we started this thing. Like, I'll be all set when, right? I used to always think that in my entire life. Like, I'll be all set when I graduate high school, be all set when I graduate college. When I have a master's degree too, I'll be all set when that comes in. I'll be all set when we get this house, when we have these kids. And I got to a point of like, I'm constantly looking down the road to be all set. Like, when will I just be all set? And when you can kind of like master the moments, right? The intentionality with the time, the non-refundable minutes. And in some ways you are like all set in this moment today, but then it's being able to continue to cast the vision, like what's next and how do we get more? You decided right then and there at the experience to join the Alliance. You were like right in the fucking queue to go. Like, what did you see? What did you feel that told you, dude, I gotta get in this Alliance?
Oh, man, I think just the power of being at the experience itself. I'm like, I want to kind of keep this going. That makes sense. And I would encourage anybody who's listening to this to go to the experience. It is so profoundly impactful. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to keep that going. I wanted to keep that feeling, that fire kind of burning. And to do that, I knew I needed to level up and, engage with those group of guys again, who want that same thing. That's fundamentally it, is that I want to be around winners. I want to be a winner and I want to be around winners. And I want to learn, I want to have mentors. I want to also be a mentor for other people. That's another reason why I wanted to join the Alliance, is because I think that will also give me an opportunity to help other people. That's a huge thing for me, that I've identified since I've been in the comeback too, is that I find a lot of value in sharing what I know with other people, and with the hopes that will help them grow too. And that's another reason why I was like, I was like, hey, Dave, the podcasts are awesome. Hoping that you'd be like, hey, you want to be on the podcast? It's just the being around greatness and growing greatness is the reason why I wanted to go from the experience and get into the Alliance. And I still want to tap in more to that. Like, there's a lot. I'm like, hell or high water, I'm going to be at the October experience, and I'm bringing my wife too. So I'm excited about that, because I haven't seen you for a long time. I haven't seen most of the guys, but for on Zoom.
It's amazing. Like the world, the universe. This morning I'm at basketball. We're watching my son. I'm sitting next to my daughter, and she said she's looking at these college kids or high school kids that are like helping. My son's 8. They're helping the little kids kind of do shooting skills, and she said all these high school kids look like they look really, attentive. Whatever word she used, and I said, yeah, they do. And she's like, I really like these. I like these high school kids because they all look like they have something going for them. And so then that creates this whole conversation her and I have about, I said to her, like, this is what my dad used to say, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Like, you are who you surround yourself with. And when you get into that Alliance, like, I did it the exact same way as you. I did the council, went to the experience, joined the fucking Alliance immediately, because like, it was like you break through some shit and you thought that was impossible, right? In my mind, like, fucking impossible to handle alcohol. Okay, I handled it. What else in my world is impossible in my head to handle that I'm lying to myself about? Experience. Okay, cool. Wow, I just broke through a bunch more shit. What else am I lying to myself? And then you get into the Alliance, and it's like you're all of a sudden now like what felt to me like a small fish, in this big giant pond. I said, I want what these fucking guys have, like, power and integrity, like authority. Like, they all have this sense of like fucking conviction about them. And I'm like, I want that. What do I need to do to get it? Like, what's the work? What's the process? I want it. I'm in. And that's like, that is that ascension, right? It's like you break through this one barrier that you didn't think you could, and it creates a bunch more. And then you break through that and it creates a bunch more. The work just really, it never ends. It sounds like something we say all the time, but literally just before this call, 7 years into the comeback for Mark, he's still breaking through stuff. He's still learning stuff about himself. He's still asking himself questions. And we sit and, to be able to sit and talk with him for like a half an hour about, life, comeback, my details, his details, like it blows you away. But it's like the greater access that you have to guys like that, the more challenged you feel. And then the more you realize there's just more I get to do. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that is another reason why I wanted to be in the Alliance, because I have fucking aspirations, and I want to be undeniable to my aspirations. And you guys have that entrepreneurial spirit. It's hard for me to say right now, that I want. And like right now, I think I'm in like kind of a fear mode, but like Dave, you just picked up and fucking moved to Wisconsin, right? That's brave shit. That's a leap of faith, right? And congratulations. And you're inspiring to me. I know we don't like to say inspiring or whatever, but it is. It makes me want to do more, like, because that's a fucking leap of faith, man. And, and Mark himself is like, you know what? I'm going to start a movement. He didn't say I want to start a business. He said, I want to start a movement. Right. So if that's not encouraging or like motivating, whatever you want to fucking call it. Like, I want that, and I want that for myself. And again, I'm not there yet, but I'll get there. I just have to not quit. I have career aspirations. I've done well, I make good money or what have you, but you also said something that fucking still sticks with me. I don't know if you remember what it is, but you're like, yeah, you're riding on your father-in-law's shirt tails. I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, all right, okay. I'll digest that. And I do want more. I don't want to think of myself as that. I don't want others to think of me that way. I want to be Joe Archibald who did X. You know what I mean? Not somebody who's riding somebody else's shirt tails. And being around people like yourself and like, all the guys who are in the Alliance, who just want more and are like the Oscars, who are like, you know what, I'm a firefighter, and I also own this fucking tree service business. I'm climbing 100-foot trees, and like, that's awesome. Doing that kind of stuff. Like the guys in the Alliance there's greatness there, and I want that for myself, and I want to offer that to others as well.
It's while you're saying that, I'm thinking about like these trophies in life, and it's so important that like your most recent trophy is not your last fucking trophy. Like what's next? And I'm going through my own shit, having moved here, like you said, and I sat in a weird place for a couple months after I got here. This sense of like, that's the biggest move you can make, right? Like, fuck, I'm good, right? Did I win? Like, I'm all in? I'm committed. Like, and then I got to the next level of like, okay, now you're here. Cool story, bro. What the fuck are you gonna do with it? Like, and it's this continual pursuit. But like, I really spent months, and I don't know if I share this with anybody, but I've spent months after getting here in September, for one, just trying to settle it in, get the kids, get everybody comfortable. But still inside of my own comeback, it was like this real sense of like arrival. And we talk, Chad talks about it a lot. Like I felt like I hit some kind of a finish line, and I stayed stagnant in my own growth and my own development for probably September through like late December, early January, like sat in a spot. And then I became aware of the spot in January, and I spent 2 months trying to figure out how to get out of the spot. And it was, March, it was like the Alliance experience where I, kind of fucking put my hands around what it was and actually destroyed it. But it took months, and I celebrated, my decision and my family, and it was all good. But it was a state of complacency, and it crept up just like it does for all of us. I'm no different. I'm not magic. Like I still get to a place of comfort, sit in a place of comfort, and then realize, dude, what the fuck are you doing sitting here? What's next? What's more? It's a process to be repeated over and over and over again. And that pursuit of the best version of you, it's really an evolution of the man, right? Like it's a metamorphosis. It's a series of changes, and some of these things are subtler. Some of them are like transitions, a little bit slighter, and some are just massive fucking transformations. When you come in out of the gate, it's massive transformation time. As you move through this, it's a subtler transition. It's a little bit of a move here and a little bit of a pivot there, and that's how you continue the growth pattern. But so we started on like, clicking the link and alcohol and bullshit. Where's the point in the conversation right now of like, generational legacy, like wealth changes, like, massive, beautiful shit, right? Legacy stuff. What would you say to the guy who he hasn't joined us yet? He's thinking about it. Maybe he talked to somebody. Hey, I got to talk to my wife. I got to do this and that. Like when people say that it's the price or whatever the dollar is, 99 times out of 100, it's a fear based of fear of failure, fear of success, fear of lack of success, fear of what if this actually fucking works? Like, what would you say to the guy that's like hesitation, right? Sitting in the doubt. I don't know. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. He's clicked the link. Maybe he's had a phone call. Maybe he's decided to finally do something, maybe for the first time. But what would you say to that guy that's in that hesitation state of, do I join these guys or not?
Wow, man, I would ask the person to really look inward and ask yourself what your trajectory is. What's going to happen if you don't change? What's going to happen if you don't start making better decisions? Just like positivity has a compounding effect, when you start making good, positive choices, making negative ones also has a compounding effect. When I talked about habits, and on that a couple of Fridays ago, your mind and body doesn't know the difference between these bad and good habits. It just does them. It literally does. It becomes an automatic response. So if you really are wanting a change and you're acknowledging that you need a change, click the link and do it. Because if you don't, it's very likely that your negative habit loops, those shitty habit loops, are just going to keep getting worse and worse. And, the end doesn't look good in that trajectory. And if you take a little leap of faith and, click the link, you can be like me and get on the first call and go, and jump off, just get back and and grow. And that you have lots of opportunity. And one of the many things that I really love about the comeback and why it's so much different is when you look into the eyes, especially when you get to meet the guys in person. Like when I looked in your eyes, Dave, I could tell like this guy wants good things for other people. He wants good things for me. If you're thinking about clicking the link, do it. The people in this group want good things for you. They want good things for the world. They want this movement, the world's a fucked up place right now. I guess it always has been, but it's our duty, and our honor to actually lead, and be the best versions of ourselves. And, taking that small leap of faith and clicking that link, I think is a great opportunity to do that and to kind of, just be the man who you can be and who the world needs. So, man, that's probably, I don't know, a little bit parabolic or hyperbolic, whatever you want to say it, but it's how I feel about it, and it's definitely helped me a lot. I'm not where I want to be 100%, but man, the progress I've made, looking back, I was a fucking mess. And it's helped me a lot, and I'm very grateful for it.
Joe, I'm gonna leave it there, but I couldn't be more grateful to be a part of your journey. My goals, the things I want to do with my life are really about, they're massive, and I tell people I want to change the fucking world. Like 100 years down the line, I want to be known as a guy who changed the world. Like that's a big thing. But so, like all of us, we have these big, massive goals. We break them down into the smallest fucking chunk that I need to do today. And that's conversations like this. That's the time that you're going to spend with your wife and spend with your kids. Your purpose is your family and your kids. It's massive, it's big, but it really fucking matters what you do today, right? Like nothing big down the road happens without you being present like today and in this moment. So I appreciate you getting on here. Your journey has been beautiful. I'm excited about like the journey that you've been on. At a certain point, don't give a fuck about the journey that you've been on. I give way more fucks about where you're going. I cannot wait to see what you're going to do in 6 months, in 6 years, and in 50 years. So I appreciate you so much, man, for getting on here and doing this, giving some time. I can't wait to see what you're going to do next, man.
I appreciate you too, Dave. It's an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Have a good day. We're going to wrap this thing up here. Appreciate you, man. Bye, buddy.
I am a comeback. If you're not dead, then you're not done. I ain't dead, so I'm here to show everyone. I am a comeback. It's not a disease, it's a choice. So I had to choose, I refuse to lose. I am a comeback. I want everyone here